it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet these gorgeous Luau Flower Ombre Earrings. These are so fun and easy to make. Now, I did shades of pink with white. I did like a bright pink, a light pink, and a white. You can really do any colors that you like. There's so many different colors of embroidery floss, like any and every color you can think of. And these are done in just one round, so it's a really quick project too. In this video, we're going to learn how to crochet each of these flowers. Then we're going to learn how to assemble them into our earring using some jump rings and ear wire or fish hook or French wire, whatever you call it. I've seen them called all different names. And then we're going to learn how to use a little bit of fabric stiffener to put on the backs of each of our flowers to kind of stiffen them up a little bit. So let's get started. We're going to jump right in, and I wanted to talk a little bit about sizing first. So each one of these flowers is about 1 inch wide and 1 inch tall. And then our finished earring from the bottom of the flower to the top of this hook, so you have an idea, is about 3.5 inches tall. So these are fun. They're very much like a statement earring, super fun to make. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, or a small yarn needle. This is some fine embroidery floss that we'll be using, so you want something small, not a huge yarn needle. We're going to be using a 3.75 millimeter F crochet hook for this project. This is a pretty small hook, but we're going to be using some fine floss for this. And then you'll need some earring parts. So I'm using these. Some people call these French hooks. Some people call these fish hooks, but they're that like classic kind of earring hook shape. And then we're going to be using something called jump rings. This is kind of a medium size. You can get a kind of a big pack of them in the beading aisle at your craft store. And they have like a cut in them so you can bend them open and bend them closed. But they're called jump rings. And you'll need a couple of those per earring. For our embroidery floss, I'm going to be using just some really classic DMC embroidery floss. This is kind of my go-to for embroidery floss. It's very inexpensive. It's usually like 25 cents a skein, and it comes in like 1 million colors at the craft store. So I have 3 colors because we're doing an ombre. So I have white. It's just called white. It's not numbered. It's so you can just usually see it at the craft store as white. And then I have like a paler pink, that's number 605 if you want to replicate my palette. And then a hot pink, this is number 603, okay? We're not going to use the full skein of this. You could get a couple pairs of earrings out of this if you choose. Or you could make a matching necklace if you like. We're going to use some jewelry pliers. This is really helpful to open up these jump rings. Some people find that they can open them with 1 pair of pliers. I prefer 2. If you only have 1, that's totally fine. If you don't have jewelry specific ones, these are just kind of miniature versions of regular pliers. This is kind of like a jewelry version of like a needle nose plier. And then this one sort of has a flat edge. But you can really use some household pliers if you like. Just make sure they're clean because they'll may get your floss dirty. We're also, as an option, this is totally optional. You can make the earring and just wear it as is. But if you want to stiffen your flower, if you want that to kind of stay in place as you wear it, whenever you wear earrings, they move around, they touch your shoulders or your hair. So some people like to use a fabric stiffener. Now this is a gigantic bottle. This will probably last me 3 lifetimes, but because you only use a little bit at a time. But this is found at any craft store. Some of the yarn places you buy yarn online sell it as well. It's basically like a thin, gluey type substance, and we will paint the backs of our flowers with this to just stiffen it. I'm not going to do the fronts. I want the stitches and everything to look as they did when we made them, but we're going to kind of paint the back. So if you are using a fabric stiffener, now this is one brand, it's made by Plaid, it's called Stiffy, but there are other ones out there too if you have one that you like to use. And just a small brush, nothing huge. This is like a watercolor brush, and I like to use a paper plate with mine because it's just easy to toss. You could use like a little square of like tin foil, or if you have like an old plate, nothing that you want to eat off of later. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to make the flowers first. We're going to learn how to crochet our flowers, and then we'll assemble them. Okay, I'm going to start with the bright pink because it's easiest to see for all of you, and our hook. So we can scoot our needle out of the way. Now, when you have these skeins of embroidery floss, usually when you first get them, this one's been used before obviously, but this one is a brand new one. Usually there will be a little end, and what I'd like to do is hold both labels and just pull like this. If you take the labels off, it just becomes a tangled mess. But it's wrapped in such a way that when you pull, you can, as long as you hold those labels and they don't slip off, you can just kind of pull it along. Okay, we're going to start on our first flower. Now I wanted to just show you, I made the other flowers so I could show you kind of how we're going to lay them out. I did a white one, the lighter pink, and the bright, like hot pink color. So we're going to make one more bright pink one. And this is super easy. We're just going to do this in one round. So let me zoom way in because this is pretty tiny. When you're working with really small yarns and embroidery floss like this and a small hook, it's really helpful to just go nice and slow and take your time. So what we want to do to begin is put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop. Reach in with your hook, bring up that loop, and tighten. Then we're going to create a ring that we'll work our stitches into. So what we want to do is chain 4. To make a chain, wrap the floss around your hook and bring it through. Okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to join in the farthest chain from the hook with a slip stitch to create the ring. So insert the hook into that chain farthest from the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And now we have a ring, and you can kind of open it up to see. Now we're also going to hold this tail along the edge as we work, and that will weave it in as we go along. So we're going to make a total of 6 petals. Let's begin the first petal. I also wanted to mention as a side note, instead of doing the chain and then joining and all, if you wanted to do the magic ring, if you prefer that, feel free to do that. It's totally up to you. So either way is fine. All right, so we're going to open up our ring a little bit, and we're going to kind of tack that tail in and hold it as we go along. So what we want to do for round 1, the one and only round that we'll be doing, is we want to chain 2. 1, 2. Now this chain 2 counts as one of our double crochets of our first petal. So then we're going to work 2 double crochets into the center of the ring. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Then we're going to work 1 more double crochet to complete that first petal. Just like that. And again, you just want to go nice and slow in case it's a little fiddly and small. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the ring, and that's going to kind of round our petal off and let us begin the next petal, okay? So 1 petal is created. So then what we want to do is create the next petal. So for this petal coming up and every petal after that, we're going to do 3 double crochets in the center of the ring. So 1 double crochet. Again, go nice and slow. Make sure you catch all those loops. Let's try that again. So 1 double crochet. There we go. 2 double crochet. And 3 double crochet, all in the center of that ring. Then we're going to work a slip stitch into the center to close off that petal. And then we're going to work on our 3rd petal, okay? So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. And then work a slip stitch into the center. Insert the hook into the center, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And then petal 3 is complete. Let's do petal 4. Okay, so 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, whoops, that tail, keep that tail out of the way, and 3. All right, I also wanted to say too, if you need to kind of get your stitches out of the way and make room for more, you can kind of slide everything over around that ring, okay? So our 4th petal is complete. Then we're going to work a slip stitch to finish off that petal. All right, 2 more petals to go. So work 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. Sliding things over if needed, work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. And then let's do our last petal. I'm still holding this tail along the edge as I work to weave that in. And we're going to work 3 double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, and 3. And then work your last slip stitch into the center. And then I'm going to get my embroidery floss scooted over here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to join at the base. Remember that chain 2 we did at the beginning of the round? That base of that first chain that we did, we're going to insert our hook into that chain. And again, it's really, really tiny, so just be patient with it. So insert your hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. We're just slip stitching to close the round. Okay, and then we're just going to fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook and just pull your end all the way through, okay? So we need to kind of shape up our flower a little bit, and we're going to weave in some ends next. Also, that tail we wove as we went along, you can kind of, might be easiest to lay it flat, but just kind of pull that center shut a little bit, okay? So now we need to do, I'm going to just trim this long tail back a little bit just to get it out of our way. So now we need to do a little bit, I'm going to zoom back out so you can see everything. We need to do a little bit of prep work for our flowers before we start to assemble them onto the earring, okay? So grab a small tapestry needle or a small yarn needle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip our flower over to the back. The front is what side faced you while you worked. So we're going to flip this over to the back, and it's so small, I like to just lay it on the table. And then what we're going to do is just thread your needle. And for each flower, we're just going to weave in our tail through these back loops of the flower. Try not to go to the front of the flower. We're just going to try and keep it nice and neat back here, okay? So we're going to go in and just pull those tails in. And then just trim them, okay? Now, we're going to paint a little bit, now it's up to you, this is totally optional, but I'm going to paint a little bit of our fabric stiffener onto the back of our flowers. So that will also tack some of these ends down too. Okay, so we want to kind of shape them up. I like to kind of give each petal sort of like a little like pinch. See how I'm going around with each petal? And then once your flower looks how you want it to look, you can kind of put it aside, and then you'll do the same for your other flowers. Okay, our flowers are ready to go. So let's start putting jump rings on our first set here. So I have my jump rings here. Now, they come in different sizes. It's really how you want it to look. So I'm going to grab one of them, and I like to use 2 pliers to kind of open them up and bend them open. So what we're going to do is start connecting our flowers first. We'll do the fabric stiffener last, once it's all assembled. Okay, so what we want to do is if we look at our petal, we have a top petal, a bottom petal, and then 2 side petals here and 2 side petals here. We're going to put rings on the tops and bottoms of our petals, okay? So go in with your ring, and we're going to put it on that centermost stitch of the bottom of this first petal, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the next flower with the same ring, and we're going to add the next flower on there. So go in the centermost stitch of one of your petals, and when you go into the stitch like this with your ring, it's very tiny, so just take your time, but you want to make sure you pick up both loops on that one stitch so you're not pulling anything out and distorting it, okay? So once you got your flowers on, take your pliers and you can just bend them shut. Now, some people can open and close jump rings with just their hands, which I think is amazing. I'm not able to do that. So we're just going to do it this way. All right, so and then you kind of shape it up a little bit. All right, grab another jump ring, and then we're going to connect the bottom flower, okay? So run it in that stitch, just like that. And then we're going to run it into the light pink stitch as well, okay? Now this takes a little bit of time. Just take your time with it because it is very small. And then just run it into that bottom petal of this other flower, okay? And then take your pliers or plier and just bend it shut, okay? So now we have our little flowers all lined up looking cute. Okay, so now we have our flowers, and I wanted to just also point out when you're adding your rings, mine go straight in the top, straight in the next petal. We're not twisting them around. So you're not like coming up under for one petal and down through for the other. And just make sure, you might want to do a little test and just kind of wiggle it around and make sure it's staying put. Okay, so what we're going to do now is add our hook. Okay, so we can slide this down. And actually, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so you can see better. Now grab your jump ring, whatever jump ring size you want to use. And these are going to go, actually I have them laying flat, but they're actually going to go like this when you're in your ear. So your ring is going this way, okay? So keep that in mind as you add them. Again, you can use any size you like. It's up to you. Sometimes when we have a lot of jump rings or big ones, the metal sort of competes with what we're attaching it to, okay? Okay, so then take your ear wire or your fish hook or your French wire, whatever you want to call it. I've seen them called all kinds of things. And we're just going to add it on there and then just kind of bend that close if need be, okay? So now we have a lovely earring complete, okay? Now just repeat this for the other one, and then we're going to jump right in and do the fabric stiffener next. Okay, so both of our earrings are assembled and they look so cute. Now, as an option, I'm going to slide some of this stuff out of the way here. As an option, I mentioned before, you can use some fabric stiffener on your piece. I like to brush mine on the back. I don't want the appearance of the stitches to change or anything like that. So flip your flowers over to the back. Oh, before we do that, I just want to show you one little thing here. If you notice, my hooks, my earring hooks are both, they're not going the same way because when you wear them on your ears, you want them to lay opposite, okay? So what we're going to do is flip our flowers over to the back. Okay, so you'll want to make sure that you shake it up really good. Have something on a protected surface. I like the paper plates. It's just really easy to just toss it when you're done. So what you want to do is just put a little blob down, and as you can see, it's sort of like runny glue, okay? So just put a little bit down on your plate, and then you want to get your brush, just get it roll in there, nice and saturated. Don't want it to be drippy. Now, you can also thin this down with a little water if you need to, so just keep that in mind if you're not loving the texture of it, okay? So what I like to do is just sort of hold the middle and then just like lightly brush outward. You don't want it to saturate it. It will soak into your fiber a little bit, but we just want to put just a nice small amount. And we're just doing this so that our flowers won't curl, okay? And again, completely optional step, but I did want to show you how to do this. It does help a little bit if you're having some curling. And embroidery floss is very silky and kind of slippery, and it kind of moves around a little bit. So I do especially like to use this product on my embroidery floss projects, okay? And you'll obviously want this to dry thoroughly before you wear these, okay? Also, this dries clear, so you can see the product laying on this flower because it's like darker than the white one, but it will dry clear. This is the back of our earring anyway, but it will dry clear. Sometimes you do see the backs of your earrings if if your hair is up and someone's behind you, you can see it, but it will dry clear. And also another tip is when you're finished, you want to make sure you thoroughly wash your brushes out because this is kind of like very watery glue, okay? Okay, so let's just do our last flower. And then what we'll do is just let this, I prefer to let it dry overnight, but at least for a few hours. Follow the directions on your particular bottle that you'll be using if you're using this. And you can see it's already starting to dry a little bit clear, okay? So we're gonna let this dry overnight, and when we rejoin, we'll look at our finished piece. Okay, so our flowers have dried, and as you can see, this is still the backs of them, and it has dried clear. So let's flip these over and look at how beautiful these earrings turned out. Let me just get them all situated to show you. And our earrings are complete. I hope you enjoyed this project. This is just a fun little portable kind of summery project. And that is how you crochet the Luau Flower Ombre Earrings. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.